All right, so are you ready to dive into something kind of controversial today?
I'm game. What do you have in mind?
Well, we're going to be taking a look at Robert Greene's 48 Laws of Power.
Oh yeah, that's a fascinating one.
It is. It really is. It's one of those books that, everyone's either like, this is amazing, it's a masterpiece, or this is like evil.
Right, it's pretty polarizing.
It is.
Yeah.
And, it's a guide to navigating these power dynamics.
Let's face it, are everywhere.
Yeah, they really are. But before we all, go out and start conquering the world,
Right. Become master manipulators.
Exactly. We're here to just unpack the ideas, not hand you a villain's handbook or anything.
Right. Just sort of explore what's there.
Yeah, exactly. So the source material that we'll be looking at today is actually straight from Robert Greene's own YouTube channel.
Oh, cool.
So it's a YouTube video called The 48 Laws of Power in Under 30 Minutes.
Okay, so it's like a crash course.
It is. Yeah, it is. And it's interesting because he, summarizes all these laws into these bite-sized insights.
Which I think is really helpful because there's a lot to unpack in that book.
Yeah, definitely. So I guess the big question is, what can we learn from these laws?
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's for, self-protection, understanding history.
Yeah.
Or just like, navigating everyday interactions.
Absolutely.
Because these laws, they pop up everywhere once you start to see them.
They really do. They really do.
So why don't we start with some of those laws that, kind of grab people's attention right off the bat?
Okay, yeah. The ones that are maybe a little more controversial.
Exactly. Like, never outshine the master.
Law number 1.
Yeah, that's a big one.
Yeah, and it kind of makes you scratch your head a little bit at first because we're always told to strive for excellence.
Right.
But what Greene's saying is that when you outshine those above you, it can create insecurity.
Right.
It can make them feel threatened. So imagine like a talented courtier in a king's court, right?
Yeah.
If they flaunt their skills too much, it could arouse suspicion and jealousy from the king.
Makes sense.
Right. So it's not about hiding your talents.
Right.
But about being strategic about how you present them.
I see. So how do you see that, like, playing out in a modern context?
Oh, for sure. Like even just in the workplace, right?
Yeah.
You have a great idea, but instead of presenting it as your own brilliant solution, you frame it in a way that helps your boss achieve their goals.
Oh, that's smart.
Right. So you're still showcasing your abilities, but you're not stepping on any toes.
Yeah, you're not making anyone feel like you're trying to take their place.
Exactly. And it all comes back to understanding that psychology of power.
Right.
It's subtle, but it can be very effective.
What makes you think about how often we do that without even realizing it?
Yeah, for sure.
Like trying to manage those perceptions.
Absolutely.
Okay, so what about some of the other, like, power grab kind of laws?
Sure, like conceal your intentions.
Oh, that's a good one.
Law number 3. And that one suggests that by keeping people guessing, you become less predictable.
Oh, that's interesting.
Right. And therefore, harder to control.
Oh, I like that.
A little mystery can go a long way.
It's true. And it's kind of like, that whole idea of like, make people come to you.
Oh, absolutely.
Which is Law 8, I think.
Yeah, Law 8. Make other people come to you. So it's like setting a trap, right?
Yeah.
You lure your prey in making them think they're in control, but you're really the one dictating the terms.
Oh, that's sneaky.
Right. And you see this a lot in negotiations, for example.
Right.
Maybe you appear more flexible or accommodating than you actually are.
Right.
But you're subtly guiding the other person towards the outcome that you desire.
So you're creating that illusion of control.
Exactly.
Even though you're the one kind of, pulling the strings behind the scenes.
Right.
Now, some of these laws are kind of a little bit more intimidating.
Yeah, for sure.
Like, crush your enemy. Totally.
Ooh, that one's intense.
Yeah, it sounds pretty intense.
Yeah, but it's not necessarily about, physical violence.
Right.
It's more about understanding that if you leave even a little ember of your opponent's power burning, it can reignite and they can come back to seek revenge.
Okay.
So imagine like a deposed ruler who still has the loyalty of a few key generals.
Oh, I see.
Right. That small pocket of support could be all they need to launch a counter coup.
So it's about dismantling their ability to act against you.
Right. Whether it's resources, influence, their network.
What isn't that a little ruthless?
It can be.
Yeah.
And that's where the ethical considerations come into play.
Right.
What are your goals and are you willing to go to those lengths to achieve them?
Right. You really have to think about that.
You do. And it also makes you think about the long game, right? The potential consequences of leaving any any sort of power remaining with your opponent.
Yeah, that's a really good
You
point.
don't want them coming back to bite you later.
Okay, so we've talked about a lot of these like very, bold moves in the power playbook.
Yeah, the offensive move.
Yeah. But what about, playing defense?
Oh, absolutely.
Because sometimes it's not about conquering, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes it's about protecting yourself.
Right, self-preservation.
Exactly.
Right.
And that's where those defensive laws come in.
Yeah, for sure. Like, never put too much trust in friends.
Oof, that one's hard.
Yeah, law number 2.
I mean, your friends are supposed to be the people you can rely on.
Ideally, yes. But when power dynamics come into play,
Right.
things can get messy. Friendships can be tested by envy, competition, even betrayal.
That's true.
So imagine a group of friends all vying for the same promotion. Suddenly, those loyalties are strained.
You're not just friends anymore.
Right, it becomes a power struggle.
Yeah, I've definitely seen that happen.
Oh, yeah.
It's like all of a sudden the stakes are higher.
Right.
So are you saying we should never trust our friends?
Not necessarily never trust, but definitely be aware. It's not about assuming everyone's out to get you, but about recognizing that blind trust can be a liability, especially when power and ambition are involved.
Okay, so it's more like a healthy dose of skepticism,
Exactly.
even with your friends.
Yeah, keep your eyes open.
Okay, so what other defensive strategies should we keep in mind?
Okay, this one might sound a little harsh, but infection. Avoid the unhappy and unlucky. Law number 10.
Oh, I've heard that one.
Yeah, and it kind of reminds me of that saying, misery loves company, right?
Right, exactly.
But think about it in terms of power dynamics. Imagine a workplace where there's one person
Yeah.
who's always complaining, spreading negativity.
Oh, yeah, we all know that person.
Right. That can be so contagious.
Yeah, I can.
It affects everyone's morale, productivity.
The whole team.
The whole team. So Greene's point is that, yeah, be compassionate, be supportive.
Right.
But protect your own energy, protect your own outlook.
That's a good point.
Because surrounding yourself with positive, driven people, it creates a much better environment for success.
It's true. I've worked on teams where, if there's that one negative person, it's just like it drags everyone down.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you know what?
Yeah.
Sometimes the best thing you can do is just distance yourself from that negativity.
Yeah.
It's not always easy, but it can be really important for your own well-being.
Yeah. Self-preservation.
Yeah.
Okay. So we've got, trust no one and avoid negative Nancys.
Right.
What else? What else should we be on the lookout for?
Okay, well, this one might surprise you. Do not build fortresses to protect yourself.
Wait, what? Isn't a fortress a good thing? Like, you're protected.
You'd think so, right?
Yeah.
But Greene argues that too much isolation can actually make you more vulnerable.
Interesting.
So think about a ruler who shuts themselves away in their castle, surrounded by guards. Yes, men. They might feel safe, but they're also cut off from valuable information.
Oh, I see.
Right, so they become an easy target for punning enemies who can exploit that lack of awareness.
Okay, that makes sense.
Right, so it's better to be out in the world, building relationships.
Gathering information.
Right, exactly.
Instead of hiding away, even if it feels safer in the short term.
Right, you need to be connected.
Okay, so that kind of ties into another law, right? Know who you're dealing with.
Oh, absolutely.
Which I think is Law 19.
Law 19, yep. And it's so important because
Yeah.
not everyone responds to power plays in the same way, right?
Yeah, that's very true.
Some people are more forgiving, some are more vengeful. Misreading your opponent,
Yeah.
it can have serious consequences.
Oh, for sure. So how do you do that? I mean, how do you figure
It's about being observant.
Okay.
Gathering information.
Yeah.
Look at their past actions, their reputation, how they interact with others.
Okay, so you're like building a psychological profile
Exactly.
with this person.
And that allows you to tailor your approach.
Okay, so you avoid making, costly mistakes.
Exactly.
It's like doing your research, essentially.
Exactly. Do your research, know who you're dealing with.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Wow, these defensive laws are really interesting.
Yeah, they're all about minimizing risk.
It's like a whole other level of awareness, I think.
Absolutely. And it makes you think about how often these power dynamics play out
Yeah.
in everyday life. It's not just about kings and courtiers, right?
Right.
It's about, negotiating a raise with your boss, dealing with a difficult coworker,
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
even navigating family dynamics.
Oh, for sure.
These laws can give you a framework for understanding what's going on.
Right, that underlying, that hidden layer.
Exactly.
And then you can make more strategic decisions.
And you know what? Sometimes the best strategy is just to walk away.
Right.
To know when to disengage from a situation that's not serving you.
It's all about picking your battles.
It is. It's about knowing when to fight.
Right.
and knowing when to walk away.
Okay. So we've got these offensive laws.
Mm-hmm.
We've got these defensive laws.
Yep.
But there's this whole other category that I'm kind of fascinated by.
Oh, me too.
And it's those laws about perception and manipulation.
Oh, yeah. The art of illusion and influence.
That's where things get really juicy.
It's where things get really interesting, for sure.
Right. Because it's like, we all know that image matters.
Mm-hmm.
But to what extent? And how can we, how could we use that to our advantage?
And also, how can we protect ourselves from being manipulated by others?
Right. Yeah. So I guess that's what we're going to be looking at next.
Yeah, let's dive into the world of perception and see what we find.
Sounds good. Let's do it.
All right. Okay, so we're diving into the world of perception and manipulation with these 48 laws of power.
Yeah, this is where things get really interesting.
Right. It's like we all know that image matters, but these laws really take it to a whole other level.
Yeah, they do. And some of them are kind of unsettling, to be honest.
Yeah, for sure. But like we said before, it's all about understanding how these dynamics work.
Right. So we can make more conscious choices.
Exactly.
So where should we start?
Well, why don't we begin with one that feels super relevant today, especially with the rise of fake news and all that.
Okay, yeah, what's that?
Play on people's need to believe. Law 27.
Ooh, yeah, that one's a bit scary, isn't it?
It is. It kind of taps into this fundamental human desire for certainty. Like we crave simple explanations, easy answers.
Yeah, we want to believe that there's some kind of order to the chaos.
Exactly. And you know what?
Yeah.
Even if those explanations aren't totally true or even logical,
Right.
we're still drawn to them.
Yeah, and that's how people get manipulated, right?
Exactly. Think about charismatic leaders who promise a utopian future, or marketers who sell products that claim to solve all your problems.
Oh, yeah, it's everywhere.
It is. They're playing on our desire to believe,
Yeah.
and often for their own gain.
So it's like buyer beware, right?
Absolutely. You got to be critical, question your assumptions, and look for evidence.
Yeah, don't just believe everything you hear.
Exactly. Especially these days when there's so much information flying around.
Okay, that's a good one. What about some of the others that deal with, image and perception?
Okay, well, there's one that always makes me chuckle a little bit. Play a sucker to catch a sucker.
Oh, yeah. Law 21?
That's the one. And it's pretty deceptive, right?
It is.
But it plays on this very human weakness.
Yeah.
Our desire to feel smart.
Yeah, we all want to think we're smarter than the average bear.
Exactly. So by appearing less capable than you actually are,
Okay.
you can lull your opponent into a false sense of security.
Oh, sneaky.
Right. And then, bam, you strike.
So it's like you're playing dumb
Kinda, yeah.
to outsmart them.
Exactly.
But that seems kind of risky, doesn't it?
It is. You got to be careful.
Because what if they're not actually a sucker?
Right, exactly.
Then you're the one who looks foolish.
Yeah, it can backfire for sure.
So you really got to know who you're dealing with.
You do. But if you pull it off, it can be pretty effective.
Well, it makes you wonder how often that happens, without us even realizing it.
Oh, I'm sure it happens all the time.
Yeah, it's probably happening right now.
Probably.
Okay, let's talk about another one. What about
Okay.
court attention at all cost?
Ah, yes. Law number 6.
That one sounds kind of, attention seeking.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But it's more nuanced than that.
Okay.
It's not just about being loud or flashy for no reason.
So what's the strategy behind it then?
It's about understanding that visibility is power. Especially in today's world, right? We're bombarded with information constantly.
Oh, yeah.
So you got to stand out.
Make yourself memorable.
Exactly. You got to command attention,
Okay.
but in a way that serves your goals, of course.
Right. It's like building your personal brand or something.
Exactly.
So it's not just about being seen. It's about being seen for the right reasons.
By the right people.
Yeah, for the right things.
Exactly. It's strategic.
Interesting. Okay, what about this one? Create compelling spectacles.
Oh, that's a good one. Law 37.
That one just sounds so theatrical.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Think about grand ceremonies, elaborate displays of wealth,
Okay.
dramatic public gestures.
Okay.
These are all ways of using spectacle to project power.
So it's about creating a sense of awe that kind of distracts from what's really going on.
Exactly. It's about captivating the audience, appealing to their emotions.
So it's all smoke and mirrors.
In a way, yes.
So it makes you think about how often we fall for that,
We do. It's human nature
Yeah.
to be drawn to the shiny, the spectacular.
Okay, so what about this last one?
All right.
Play to people's fantasies.
Oh, that's a good one. Law number 32.
I mean, isn't that basically all of marketing and advertising these days?
It's a big part of it for sure,
Yeah.
because it taps into this fundamental desire
Mm.
for escape, for wish fulfillment.
Right? Like we want to believe that our lives could be better.
Exactly. So if you can offer a vision
Yeah.
or an experience that resonates with those desires,
Okay.
you can create a really powerful emotional connection.
It's like you're selling them a dream.
In a way, yes.
And we're all susceptible to that to some extent.
Oh, absolutely. We all have fantasies. We all have desires.
Yeah, it's just a matter of like who's tapping into them and for what purpose.
Exactly. And that's why it's so important to be aware of these tactics.
Right.
So you can make conscious choices about what you believe, who you trust.
Yeah, it all comes back to that, doesn't it?
It does. Awareness is key.
Okay, so we've talked about a lot of these laws,
Mm-hmm.
about, manipulating perceptions, playing on people's desires, creating these spectacles.
Yeah, we've covered a lot of ground.
We have. But there's one more law that we haven't touched on yet.
Oh, yes.
And it kind of feels like it stands in contrast to a lot of what we've been talking about.
It does. It does. It's almost like an antidote to all this rigidity and control.
Really?
Yeah. It's Law 48.
Hmm.
Assume formlessness.
Oh, that one sounds interesting. Let's talk about that next.
Okay, so assume formlessness.
What is that all about? I mean, it sounds kind of mysterious.
It is kind of mysterious. It's like, after all this talk about strategy and control,
Yeah.
this law is saying, hey, loosen up a bit.
Okay, so be more adaptable, go with the flow.
Exactly. Think of it like water.
Okay.
Water adapts to whatever container it's in, flows around obstacles. It can even carve canyons over time, right?
Yeah.
And it changes states from ice to liquid to vapor.
So it's versatile.
Extremely. And that's the kind of adaptability Greene is talking about.
Okay, so how do you actually apply that,
Well, it's about recognizing that you don't always have to be in control.
Right.
Sometimes the most powerful move is to be flexible.
Okay.
Be open to new possibilities and be willing to change course when necessary.
Instead of like forcing a specific outcome.
Exactly. You're more like a surfer riding a wave, adjusting to the shifting currents, using them to your advantage.
Okay, that's a good analogy.
Right. You're not fighting the current, you're working with it.
But doesn't that like kind of contradict some of the other laws?
It does seem like a paradox, doesn't it?
Yeah, like we've been talking about all this strategy and control.
Right. But remember, if you're too rigid, too focused on one specific plan, you become predictable.
Yeah.
And predictability can make you vulnerable.
Right.
So assume formlessness is like a wild card.
Okay.
Keeps your opponents guessing, allows you to capitalize on opportunities that you didn't even see coming.
So it's about being adaptable.
Yeah.
And kind of like embracing uncertainty.
Absolutely. Uncertainty is a part of life. You can't avoid it.
Well, after diving into all these 48 laws of power, some are about manipulation, some are about self-protection. It really makes you wonder, like, where does Robert Greene stand on the whole ethics thing?
Right. Like, is he condoning all of this or is he just observing it?
Yeah, that's the big question.
Yeah. It is. And I think it's open to interpretation. Greene himself has said that he's not advocating for ruthlessness.
Okay.
But he's providing a framework for understanding how power works.
So it's like knowledge is power, but it's what you do with it that really matters.
Exactly. It's all about how you choose to apply this knowledge.
Because you could use it for good or evil, essentially.
Right. It's like having a toolbox full of powerful tools.
So,
You could use them to build something beautiful, or you could use them to cause harm.
so it all comes back to your own personal values.
Your own ethics, your own goals. What kind of impact do you want to have on the world?
Yeah, that's a good question to ask yourself.
It is. It's a question we should all be asking ourselves.
So what's your final takeaway for our listeners?
I would say keep exploring these ideas. Keep observing the world around you. And keep asking yourself those tough questions about how you want to interact with power.
Because ultimately, the most important power is the power to choose.
Exactly. The power to choose how you respond, how you act, how you live your life.
Well said.
Thank you.
I think this has been a really fascinating exploration of, this whole world of power dynamics.
It really is.
And it's made me think about things in a whole new way.
Me too. And I hope it's done the same for our listeners.
Yeah, I hope so too. So to everyone listening out there, remember, knowledge is power, but it's the choices you make that really shape your life.
And the lives of those around you.
Absolutely. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the 48 laws of power.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
And we'll see you next time.